Hey everybody, DTD here, and I was watching some YouTube videos yesterday, as I want to do, and just to sit down and relax and rewind and whatnot, and I came across an interesting idea that I thought I would take part of. I was watching Bellular Gaming's channel, and he did a video called, If I Ran WoW, What Would I Change? That was in turn inspired by the Lazy Peon, and I highly suggest you check both of those channels out. They are very good. And they encourage people to put in their 2 cents on what they would change if they ran WoW. Now, those of you that listened to Sheep Moon back in the day, you guys know that I'm a big proponent of change for World of Warcraft. I think the game has deteriorated from its glory days and would like to see some of those return. Now, not all the changes that were made in World of Warcraft were bad, but there are some that I would like to see different or even removed altogether. So I thought I would make a list about what I would change with World of Warcraft, and it actually kind of turned into a pretty big list. So this might be a kind of a long video. But if I were in charge of WoW, if the Guardian took over Blizzard and ran World of Warcraft, this is the stuff I would change. So the first thing I would change, and one of the big things that kind of ruined the game for me, was LFG. LFG took away the community aspect of World of Warcraft. And I think that's one of the biggest things about WoW, is the ability to get together with people, meet new friends, make new friends. However, it wasn't all bad. I mean, do you remember the days of spamming trade chat to try to find a tank or a healer for an instance? I do. They weren't always fun. So the change I would make to LFR, or not LFR, but LFG, the random queuing system, is I would change it so it was server only. I mean, it is an improvement to the game, but as I said, it kills server communities. And since we have connected realms now, which are a good thing because it populates all the realms, you could do it server only or connected realm only and still be able to keep the community intact, because you'll start recognizing players that you are grouped with, and it will help you recognize people out in the world, which I think is a big part of World of Warcraft, is just recognizing some people that you may have run an instance with, or hey, a ninja looter, oh, there's that ninja looter, why don't we go ahead and just, you know, ruin his name across the server so he doesn't do it again. I think it's a big part of World of Warcraft, and I think it should come back. So I would definitely keep the system, but by no means should it be so you run with a bunch of unknown people that you'll never run into again, because I think that's what ultimately kills the game. On top of that, I would make guilds important again. Remember back in Cataclysm when they were talking about talent trees for guilds and how you could customize your guild to do specific goals? I would definitely implement that. Just make being a part of a guild important, because right now you can do everything in the game, not be a part of a guild, and the only thing you'll really be missing out on is 15-minute Hearthstone, and that's it. That's really the only drawback of not being in a guild. I think that's counterintuitive to what an MMO is, so I would definitely bring that back. Also, bring back the utility role of classes. Remember back in Burning Crusade, the Shadow Priest, probably the most prime example of a utility class. The Mana Battery. Bring that back. Give classes some identity again. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with not being in the top of the chart if you are providing some other utility to the raid. And I think Burning Crusade Shadow Priest was a prime example of that. That was my main class. That is my favorite class of all time, is Burning Crusade Shadow Priest. Not because it did the top damage, because it didn't, but because they brought such a utility to the raid that it made them wanted, it made them viable. Sure, they weren't topping the charts, but everybody wanted Shadow Priest in their raid. I think we have room for that again. Remember way back when Blizzard was contemplating putting in a different type of class? Bring that back. That would be great. And also, just my last bit for the general thing is flying, okay? You can't just take out flying forever, especially since we've been so accustomed to it for 8 years. We've had flying in the game for 8 years, longer than we've not had it. So what I suggest to kind of appease both parties is just bring back flying for max level characters, for max level content. Do you remember back in Burning Crusade, the first time going into the Elemental Plateau? That was an iconic part of Burning Crusade, was being able to access zones that you couldn't otherwise. There's nothing wrong with flying for max level characters. You've done all the questing content in the world. And that's something we'll come up against later. But bring back flying. There's nothing wrong with flying in the game if you do it correctly. The problem is, Blizzard has botched it so bad that they decided, instead of trying to fix it and make it good, that they were just going to take it out completely. And that's the wrong decision. The wrong decision. So bring back flying for max level characters. That will appease people who don't want flying during leveling. That will also appease people who want flying. And you can't ignore all those voices. That is too many voices to ignore. Now let's talk about leveling. I would do a lot of changes. I would make a lot of changes to the leveling content. First of all, bring back talent trees. Let us customize our characters. Not every arms warrior is going to be the exact same arms warrior. Not every player has the exact same playstyle. Let us customize our characters a little bit. Let us make wild specs. And sure, they're hard to balance, and that's why you took them out in the first place. But you know what? That's what you guys get paid for, is to balance the game. You guys have a bigger team than ever. You can devote more time and more resources to balancing classes. And even when you took those out, classes still aren't balanced. It's not like taking out talent trees fixed the problem. So put talent trees back in. Let us customize our characters again. Let Arms Warrior A be different than Arms Warrior B. There's nothing wrong with that. And let them all be viable. You guys can devote the resources for this. Make it happen. On top of that, there is one single NPC in the game that is basically not even used anymore. They're irrelevant now. And that's trainers. We no longer have to go train for our classes. Yet, as you guys have seen if you watch quest text, we are still told to go and talk to our trainers to learn new skills. They haven't even updated the quest because they're so irrelevant. So what I propose, let us train in our skills again. Let us spend some of the gold that we earn leveling to train our skills. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but you know what? It makes gold more desirable. You also get rid of a lot of the inflation that has happened in the game because everybody has millions of gold now. Gold is so easy to get. But when you're leveling, why not make gold a scarce resource by making us spend it to train our skills? And why not let us pick and choose what skills we train and what we don't to try to save a little bit of that money? And then at max level, when gold's flowing in, we can go and buy the skills that we didn't use while we were leveling. There's nothing wrong with that. Give those poor NPCs who are now out of a job and living on welfare, hoping that we go to them just to change our specs, give them something to do again. Let us go train our skills. Give us a reason to go back to our main capital cities while we're leveling and interact with the world again. On top of that, something else I dearly, dearly miss as part of the leveling experience is group questing. Jin Thalor in the Hinterlands was one of my favorite questing areas of all time ever. I love that place. And it was strictly a group quest activity. Now it's single player and it's boring. Bring back group quests. Make us group up with our friends or with random people out in the world. Another way to bring the community back to World of Warcraft. Make us group together. Give us incentives to group together. Add rewards for grouping up. Let us gain bonus XP, much like you do in Diablo. Give us bonus XP for grouping with other players. It not only makes the questing experience more enjoyable because you're with other people, but on top of that, it gives us incentive to actually play with friends. This is a massively multiplayer online game. This is not a single player game. Let's start rewarding those people who actually decide to group with other people. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. On top of that, I understand that some people hate leveling. That is not the experience they enjoy, and that's fine. So let's make 100 the end cap. Let's make level 100 the final level cap we will ever have to reach. We will never have to level to 105, 110. Level 100 is it. It's a nice round number that a lot of RPGs shoot for. Why not go ahead and make that the end cap for World of Warcraft? I think it's a great idea. Now, on top of that, what about when new expansions come out? Add some alternative advancement routes. For example, Path of the Titans. Do you remember Path of the Titans? The much wanted ability or a progression path that was promised in Cataclysm? Put that in the game. Give us some alternative leveling paths. Sure, it's incentive to go out and quest in the new zones or whatever, but it's also not exactly leveling. Make it so that there is a benefit to do it, but don't make it absolutely mandatory. Make it optional. There's nothing wrong with optional content in this game. Nothing wrong with it. But the problem is you have to incentivize all that optional content. You have to make it so we want to do it, so that there is a reason to go out and do things in the world. Because your biggest complaint right now is that there's no reason to leave your garrison. So make incentives to actually leave your garrison and go do stuff. Also, incentivize finishing a zone. There are a lot of great quest lines in World of Warcraft. Some of the ends of the zones have fantastic RP elements or big events that you can take part in. But while you're leveling with heirlooms, there's really no reason to do it. Now, I'm not saying take out heirlooms because I think it's great for those people who want to level as quickly as possible and just get to the end game and do that content, and that's fine because that is a different style of play. But you shouldn't punish those that aren't using heirlooms. You should incentivize actually doing all of the quests. So my suggestion is incentivize completing a zone. Give us something. Give us something to complete a zone in the world. Like I said, there's a lot of great stuff to see out there, but give us incentives to actually complete a zone. Make it count. Give the rewards to those people who actually want to see all of the content. Give us rewards for those people who want to take their time to level, to actually enjoy the experience. Right now it's a punishment because there is no reason to finish a zone aside to see the lore. And not everybody is a lore nerd like me, like Novel, like some other great, fantastic lore nerds. Give us incentives to do it. And finally, my last request for leveling is to make all paths of leveling viable. Questing should not be the only path. Dungeon grinding should not be the only path. For example, for PvP, make quest chains that involve running battlegrounds and completing PvP objectives. Give them a little bonus for dedicating themselves to PvP. Let them gear up as they PvP easier, rather than these stupid honor things that you only get at certain thresholds. For pet battles, make it even more like Pokemon. Give them leveling trainers. Add random trainer battles as you level and explore the world. For professions, make quests that involve crafting specific items from your professions and make them require specific quest items or quest regions. That way they have to go out and explore the world, maybe kill a mob here and there while they're doing it, but give them a reason to actually go out and grind their professions and reward that. Make crafting a viable leveling path. I think it's something that would boost professions greatly. On top of that, with archaeology, make it a viable leveling path with specific relics to find. Make quests to find specific relics. Make it like Indiana Jones style. I think that'd be absolutely fantastic. Now, another big complaint that we have from current World of Warcraft is world content. There's no reason to go out in the world. One thing I would do personally is make the world bosses harder. Make them bosses again. Remember Doomlord Kazakh? Do you remember the Emerald Dragons? Do you remember Azuragos? Make them difficult bosses. Make them a reason to get a raid group together. Give them actual mechanics instead of this BS crap we have right now. Make world bosses harder. And add random events. World bosses don't have to be the end-all be-all of world content. Rift does a fantastic job, and Guild Wars 2 does a fantastic job of adding events to specific zones. Just to give people a reason to go out in the world and do things. And on top of that, add stuff for older zones. Not everything has to be inside the new hotness that is the latest expansion. What happens if the Sons of Hodir start going crazy again? Oh, we have to go back to Storm Peaks to go help the Sons of, to go, you know, figure out what the hell the Sons of Hodir are doing. Give us a reason to go back to the old world, because right now there is no reason to leave Draenor. Really none. Now, Pandaria did a great thing with the Barons, and I thought that having the war leaders and the Barons was fantastic. It gave us a reason to go back to the Barons as at max level. Do more of that. That is fantastic. Azeroth is a beautiful and fantastic world. Make us go see it. Make us go be a part of it. Make us experience it. And give us new things to do there. There's nothing wrong with that. How cool would it be to get a message saying that Bolvar Fordragon has lost control of some of the Scourge in Icecrown, and we have to go liberate Icecrown. We have to go help the Knights of Ebon Blade go clear out a path of Scourge that's gone rampant in Icecrown. That sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? Yeah, gives us a reason to go back to an iconic place in World of Warcraft. And on top of that, gives us something to do and new lore. Awesome, awesome. Now, you guys know I'm a big fan of questing, obviously. It is kind of disheartening to know that once you hit max level, you're done questing. You don't have to quest anymore, aside from rare occurrences like getting a legendary that nobody wants. Make quest lines specifically for max level characters. Make new zones for max level characters to go and do certain things in. Let those people who enjoy questing continue questing at max level. In content patches, add more quest lines for those people. Let us go explore the world and see the lore in the game and all this other stuff we want to do. Give us more options. That's the big thing. Give us more options. Give us more things to do. That's all we want, Blizzard. We want more things to do. We want dailies. Maybe not the burdensome dailies that we got in Mists of Pandaria, but the 5.1 dailies were fantastic. Give us more of that stuff, okay? Give us reasons to log in every day that isn't a boring grind. Give us story elements like the patch 5.1 dailies did. And make reputations something that are optional, but rewards us enough to do them. And make the quest lines interesting. I thought the Claxi quest line was fantastic in Dreadwaste. And seeing the end, the big reveal at the end of that quest line, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, was amazing. And one of my favorite reputations to do. Give us a reason. Give us some lore about these reputations that we're grinding reps for. Because a lot of us don't even know what these reputations are. So give us some info, Blizzard. Give us a reason to go and grind all of this stuff that you want us to do. And finally, put all of the damn lore in the damn game. Stop making us buy books and comics just to find out what the hell is happening in our storyline. The Trial of Garrosh would have been a fantastic in-game event. But no, it had to be put in a book. We had to read it instead of experiencing it in the world that we inhabit. We should feel the repercussions of some of the things that happen in the comics and in the books. We still haven't met Medan, who's going to be a major player in forthcoming expansions, I feel. The death of Ronan was done in a book. A major lore character. Put all of that stuff in game. Let us, even if it's just a cutscene, let us experience it in World of Warcraft, the game that it is based around. I know you want money, and the people who enjoy those books are still going to buy them. Hell, put more detail in the books. We don't have to have the entire, every nook and cranny in World of Warcraft. But put the major points in the game, please, so all of us can experience the lore. Next, professions. Professions need a complete overhaul. Just from the ground up, they need to be changed. I don't know exactly what needs to be done because I'm not a big profession guy, but something needs to change with profession. But I do know one thing that I desperately miss is specializations. Remember back in the day as a blacksmith, when you could be a weaponsmith or an armorsmith? Bring that back. Let us specialize in what we want to craft. Let weaponsmiths make better weapons than armorsmiths or just general blacksmiths. Let leather workers who create mail Create better mail armor than leatherworkers would. Give us specializations back. Also, bring back rare reagents. How cool would it be to have to travel to fight some demon at like the top of that mountain over there? You have to climb that mountain to get a special reagent to make a fantastic item. Give us the depth that a lot of the other parts of the game have in our professions, because a lot of people love professions. Give them access to that. And finally, make really good crafting recipes that maybe are better than the first tier of gear. But don't overdo it. Don't give us like an entire set. Burning Crusade, the Spellfire set, was fantastic. That would last you through tier 4 and maybe partially into tier 5, and in some circumstances even last you to Black Temple. And they were crafted. They required special things, but they were crafted. Make crafted items actually worth it again. The big one, the possible biggest one, dungeons and raids. You guys already know the first thing I'm going to say with this, I'm sure, if you listen to Sheepman at all, but bring back attunements. Not every Joe Schmo should just go and raid the new hotness. Not everybody should be able to skip High Mall to get into Blackrock Foundry. Bring back attunements. Attunements were fun. Attunements, while grindy and kind of frustrating sometimes, gave us a reason to go do old content. A lot of us went and ran Shadow Labs and Shattered Halls and a lot of other dungeons just to help other people get attuned. It gave us a reason to go back and do dungeons. It gave us a reason to go back and do Kara or Grohl or Magtheridon after we had cleared Tempest Keep or Serpent Shrine Cavern, just to help other people get attuned to do other things, to help our raiders out. Bring back attunements. They add flavor to the game, and that is something that the game desperately needs, is more flavor. Also, when you launch a new expansion, give us at least 2 raid tiers on launch. And with attunements in place, it will automatically make it so you can't just skip the first tier and go right to the second tier, even if you were to get blown up by the higher difficulty. 2 raid tiers at launch gives us plenty of content to do right off the bat. Sure, World First Guilds are going to clear it fast. They always clear things fast. That's what they do. But you shouldn't penalize the rest of the community because you're worried about the World First Guilds. The World First Guilds are the top 0.1% of all players. They need to be catered to, but you shouldn't sacrifice the other 99.99% of the player base to do that. Dungeon content, okay? We need more dungeons. We need more dungeons, and we need new dungeons. 5-man dungeons are a viable player preference. Give us more of it. Also, make them harder. And I got this idea from Bellular, so thank you again, Bellular, for not only this entire video, but for this specific idea. But make normal dungeons about as hard as our current heroics. Make heroic as hard as what Mythic is going to be once patch 6.2 drops. And Mythic dungeons, make them punishing. Make them some of the hardest content in the entire game. People who prefer 5-player dungeons should not feel penalized for doing quote-unquote lesser content. Make it hard. Make it rewarding. Make it good. Now, on top of dungeons, we also have raids. Now, largely, the raids are actually in a pretty decent spot. They're not perfect, but they're in a good enough spot. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh my god, there's too many difficulties. I actually like that there are different difficulties. I like that there are a lot of difficulties, because you can't lump players into 2 baskets. You need lots of different baskets to accommodate for all the players in the game, because not everybody is in 2 skill levels. There are varying skill sets throughout all of World of Warcraft. So I would actually keep all of the current difficulties we have right now, but I would make some changes. I would make exclusive content for each difficulty. So for example, let's take Blackrock Foundry as an example right now, because that is the current raid. LFR? For LFR difficulty of Blackrock Foundry, I would actually take out the end wing bosses. So Blast Furnace, Chromog, Iron Maidens, and Blackhand, I would take them out. I would put in some sort of cutscene or something so that people who are in LFR just to see the lore of the place would actually know what's going on and how it concludes, but I would not let them do those bosses. Now, on normal difficulty, I would add those end wing bosses back. Aside from Blackhand, I would keep Blackhand out of normal. That way you can do the majority of the raid, but still not have everything. Now, on heroic difficulty, I would put Blackhand in there. I would add the end full raid for heroic difficulty, because that is, let's be honest, that's the real raiding difficulty, is heroic. And finally, for mythic, I would add a special mythic only boss, like Sinestra, or Rauden, or Algalon. A heroic only boss that those mythic guilds can experience, and only mythic guilds. If you want to experience those bosses, you've got to be at the top end, and make them hard. Make them the true end boss of the tier. Not like Rauden, who actually turned out to be easier than the Thunder King. Make him hard, make him exclusive, because Blizzard, your big argument to making raids easier was you wanted everybody to see all the content that you poured all these hours in. Well, guess what? When you make raids too easy, people aren't going to want to do them as much. So strike a balance. Another thing I'd bring back is giving each raid difficulty its own loot table. Now, for those that don't know, who didn't play in Wrath of the Lich King, every single difficulty, 10 and 25 man, had a specific loot table. And then the heroic versions of those difficulties actually just gave us bumped up versions of those items. But now I would give every single difficulty their own loot table. That makes them unique to each other. Give them a unique look. Obviously make Mythic look better than everything else, but you should be able at a glance to tell the difference between a normal raider and a heroic raider, between an LFR raider and a Mythic raider. You should be able to tell the difference at a glance just looking at somebody in town. Give us that uniqueness back. We want to be special little snowflakes. Now, while we're not going to be unique little snowflakes, at least we can be different enough to feel special. Give us that carrot on a stick to do harder dungeons. I know the reason I got into raiding was I saw a priest in tier 6 in Ogremar one day standing on top of the bank, and I was in awe. I wanted that gear. So what did I do? I started raiding. I started raiding my ass off. And guess what? I finally got the cool looking gear. And it was an amazing moment for me. And it's what's got me hooked into raiding, and that's one of the reasons I keep raiding, or I kept raiding up until today, which I'm kind of retired now, but that's beside the point. Give us incentives. Everybody wants to look cool. Not everybody wants to do transmog. So make the gear look cool, and make it so it looks different than everybody else. We want more dungeons. That's not a secret. But on top of that, I would make even smaller raids. I would make 5-player raids, just these massive citadels that 5 players can go into and do essentially raid. Do raiding content, but only 5 people. Again, 5-player groups should not be pushed aside. They are a viable playstyle, just like raiding, just like PvP, just like everything else. Now, one of the big things is garrisons. Everybody's upset with garrisons. And while Blizzard did try to do something great with them, they failed. Garrisons, I would consider a failure, especially since nobody likes doing them anymore. So I would make some changes to garrisons, obviously. First, we're going to take out all the profession buildings. We're going to make professions important. We're going to make professions something that you want to do, that you want to get good at. If you want to be known as the best blacksmith in the land, well, you got to work for that. And putting stuff behind a daily reset or anything like that is not going to make anybody happy. So, take profession buildings out. Make it something actually difficult to obtain. On top of that, instead of each character having their own garrison, just do one account-wide garrison. That way people won't feel so stuck in their garrisons because they have to do it once on their account, and that's it. And on top of that, make your alts some of your followers. Wouldn't that be fantastic to have this shaman right here be a follower I can send out on missions? And the time I put into him in-game, getting him gear or whatnot, actually makes him have a better success rate at some of the missions he does. It not only gives us a reason to play alts, but it gives us a reason to do garrisons. We are more attached to our characters. That's something I wanted from the beginning. Give my alts a reason to exist. Make them part of the Warcraft continuity. On top of that, a big thing I have a problem with, actually, is we're supposed to be the leader of these armies. We're supposed to be a commander. Where are our armies? Where is all these people we're supposed to be in charge of? Our garrison followers? Is that our army? A group of 60 or so people? That's not an army. Give us large-scale army battles. Everybody wants the Warcraft's RTS back, and I don't blame them. RTS is where Warcraft was birthed. So why not make RTS side missions? Something that makes us feel like an actual commander. Remember in Oldham, that one little quest that we had to direct just a couple of lions around to do things? That felt very much like Warcraft. Bring that back. That was fantastic. Oh my god, that was amazing. And finally, PvP. I don't PvP a whole lot, but I do some. Some things I would like to see in PvP. Make world PvP objectives again, like the towers in Hellfire Citadel, or the towers in Eastern and Western Plaguelands, or Hala, or Wintergrasp. Give us some instance stuff like Wintergrasp, but give us some open world stuff like the towers, like the PvP towers. Give us a reason to kill people in the world. That's all I'm really asking for. Give us a reason, Blizzard. On top of that, PvP players should get as many content updates as raiders do. PvP gets pushed off to the side all the time. Give them as many battlegrounds as we get raids. Every time we get a raid, they should get a new battleground or a new arena or something. Give PvPers something to do. I don't think that's really too much to ask, honestly. And finally, another great idea from Bellular and Lazy Peon. Incentivize players to kill the faction leaders. Give us that world PvP feeling. People want it. People love it. Give it to them. But the biggest change I would make is just give us some options. Give us a chance to customize our characters. Make us feel like we are in charge of our own destiny. That's everything I've got. I'm sure I had some more ideas that I missed. If you have any ideas that you'd like to change, why don't you comment on the video or even make a video of your own? Let us know what you would change about World of Warcraft as it is today if you were in charge. And hey, if you liked this video, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button? I mean, you don't have to, but you'd be a lot cooler if you did. I'm D2D. I'll see you next time.